What is up, everyone? Please take a second to hit that like button. The more likes that we get in a short period of time, the more people the algorithm will bring into the chat to come hang out with us and see what's going on. So please hit that like button and let me know how you're doing.
Okay, please be seated. All right, the state may call its next witness.
This time the state called Officer Dan Irish.
Hello, officer. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this case? Please take the witness stand, and then will you please remove your mask? Please state your full name and spell it.
Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, middle name Lawrence, L-A-W-R-E-N-C-E, last name Irish, I-R-I-S-H.
All right, officer, just a reminder, yes or no answers, no or Okay, if you don't understand a question, the question can be clarified for you. If an objection is made, stop talking and don't answer it unless I tell you to. And don't talk on top of each other. So wait until the question is finished before you answer.
Yes, sir.
Right. Counsel?
Could you state your occupation for the record?
Police officer,
What law enforcement agency are you with currently?
the Champlin Police Department.
How long have you been a police officer?
About 19 and a half years.
Is that dating all the way back to about January of 2003?
Yes, sir, it is.
Did you work anywhere in law enforcement capacity during your time at Champlin?
Yes, I have. I worked for the Anoka County Sheriff's Office part-time in the Court Security Division. I've worked for the City of Dayton as a part-time police officer. I no longer work there. The City of Corcoran part-time as a police officer, and currently with Metro Transit Police as a police officer part-time.
And you're a licensed peace officer?
Yes, sir.
And you take continuing education courses to maintain that license, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you're trained in responding to emergencies?
Yes, I am.
Do you have a specific assignment within the Champlin Police Department?
Currently, I'm assigned to the patrol division as a patrol officer. Yes, I am. Working day shift, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
When you're working on patrol in Champlin, are you equipped with body-worn camera?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Have you held any special assignments or duties during your career with Champlin?
Yes, I'm currently a drug recognition expert, instructor, as well as a standardized field sobriety instructor. I'm on the West Metro Mobile Command Field Force. I was on the Anoka Hennepin Drug Task Force. I've been a use of force instructor, and that's about it.
In your work with the West Command Mobile Field Force, have you encountered officers from other departments?
Yes, I have.
And have you encountered officers from the Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park Police Departments?
Yes, I have. They're assigned to our platoon. It's Champlin, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, and Osseo.
As a patrol officer, could you explain your duties?
To patrol the city of Champlin, respond to 911 calls, be proactive with traffic stops and other responsibilities, assist with emergency calls as needed within neighboring jurisdictions.
And do you travel in a marked squad?
Yes, I do.
And how many officers are typically in a squad car in Champlin?
Just one.
And you had alluded to the notion that you respond to emergency calls not only in Champlin?
That's correct.
Where else do you respond to emergencies?
Neighboring agencies that are close by.
Would those communities include Brooklyn Center?
Yes, it would.
Now, when you respond to an emergency in another city, what might your duties or responsibilities entail?
It depends what is happening when I get there and where I'm needed and what kind of work needs to be done.
Am I correct that in addition to being a patrol officer, you have been a field training officer for other officers in your department?
Yes, I have.
Could you explain how the field training program works in Champlin?
In Champlin, the new hire goes through 4 phases of field training, and he's usually with a different officer on each phase. The phase can last anywhere up to a month. They drive, and the FTO sits in the passenger seat and helps guide them as a police officer, teach them about statutes and rights and policy and procedure and all that stuff.
Does that require any special skills or training to be a field training officer?
Yes, you attend a field training officer school, and then it also requires being a good officer and knowing the job and having some experience on.
Describe how in a given day, how that given day may be different if you're functioning as a field training officer versus merely just being an officer if you're alone in the squad car.
Being alone in the squad car, I'm responsible for myself. When I'm field training, I'm now responsible for that individual, making sure that proper policies and procedures are followed. When I'm alone, I make the decisions on where I'm going, where I'm going to turn, who I'm initially going to stop. When I have a field training officer or trainee, depending on the phase, kind of later phases, they have more latitude on what choices they get to make. In the earlier phases, they don't.
How long have you been a field training officer?
I believe since 2007.
Now, when responding to emergency calls, have you ever needed to provide emergency medical aid?
Yes, I have.
I want to talk about your training and experience in that. As a 19-year police officer, could you describe your medical training for the jury?
Yes, I am currently certified as a first responder in the state of Minnesota.
And you've been certified as a first responder all the way back to 1999, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And have you received special instruction from the U.S. Marshals on medical training?
Yes, we had the U.S. Marshals come into the Champlin Police Department for our annual refresher, providing like a tactical medical training, medical response, and kind of a tactical situation.
Now, in terms of the medical interventions you're trained on, am I correct? You're obviously trained on how to check a pulse,
That's correct.
how to conduct CPR,
Yes, sir.
how to place a chest seal on a wound such as a gunshot wound,
Yes, sir.
how an AED or a defibrillator functions,
Correct.
how to apply and to administer a breathing device known as an ambu bag,
Yes, sir.
how to put on and how a Lucas device functions.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about some of those later. But how often have you had to utilize this degree of medical training as a police officer?
I couldn't even count the number. At the Champlin Police Department, we respond to all medical calls that are dispatched to us. I don't know, I'd probably...
How about this? Would you agree that you have to utilize this degree of medical training multiple times per year?
Yes, I'd agree with that.
And am I correct that you've actually received 7 commendations or recognition for life-saving work in the field?
Yes, that is correct.
And could you describe what one of those awards means?
It means that I saved somebody's life by providing some sort of act, whether it was CPR or whether it was dragging somebody from a house for carbon monoxide poisoning. But most of them, I believe, are CPR saves.
Today I want to just discuss the events of April 11th, 2021. Do you recall that day?
Yes, sir.
Were you on duty?
Yes, I was.
And did you work your regular 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift that day?
Yes, I did.
At approximately 2 p.m., do you recall what you were doing?
Coming back from the Hennepin County Jail to
Were you
the
traveling
city.
in your squad car?
Yes, sir, I was.
If I interrupted, I apologize. Could you describe where you were driving about that time?
Roughly 694 interchange.
Okay. Did something occur at that time that attracted your attention?
Yes.
And what was that?
It was on the Hennepin County East Main, or I think they call it Law 1 now. I heard 3200, which is the city of Brooklyn Center, call out shots fired.
Shots fired. Better just back up to help everybody understand what are you listening to, what's the 32 main, help us understand what you're doing as you're driving back to Champlin at that time.
Okay. Champlin Police Department is on what's called Hennepin Law 2, which is where I get dispatched on, but because I border the city of Brooklyn Park, I also listen to the Hennepin County East Main, or Law 1, where they're dispatched from, and Brooklyn Center's call number is 3200, and it could be 3200 all the way down to 3235, 38, whatever the case may be.
Okay. So you heard on the Hennepin County East Main channel a call, and that specific information that you heard that occurred in Brooklyn Center was
Shots fired.
shots fired. Okay. When you get a call, when you hear about a shots fired call, what goes in your mind with regard to how you are going to respond?
It's obviously an emergency call, and I'm going to respond lights and siren to the area and find out where I'm needed.
And is that what you did in this case?
That's correct.
And did you get information about the specific location of the shots fired call?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as you traveled to that area, did you get any other updates about what was going on?
Yes, I heard a Brooklyn Center officer, Officer Salvosa, that I learned later, yelling on the radio that he had one at gunpoint.
And did you arrive in the area that Officer Salvosa identified?
Yes, I did. As I was arriving, I asked where I was needed, and whoever answered me said 63rd and Catherine.
Okay. And so you ended up at 63rd and Catherine.
That's correct.
And what did you do when you arrived at that location?
I got out of my squad car and I walked up to where all the other officers had already kind of mustered and were trying to devise a plan.
Okay. And you basically went there just as you previously said. There was an emergency in another city. How many did? Is that about right?
That's correct, sir.
So as you arrived, you said that there were some other officers devising a plan. Perhaps at this point, could you describe what you see at the scene at that time at 63rd and Catherine?
There was multiple squad cars on scene. There was one crashed, what I believe was either an SUV or a crossover, and then there was a white passenger car crashed up in the front and kind of by the corner and telephone pole maybe.
Okay. And did you encounter Officer Salvosa?
I don't know if I talked to him or seen him right there.
Okay. What were other officers doing in addition to devising a plan?
Trying to get a bunker so that we could use them to approach the vehicle.
Okay. Did officers have their guns drawn, not drawn, or something else?
They had their guns drawn.
Okay. And the objective at that point was what? To approach the white car?
Yes, sir. To approach the white car safely.
Okay. Now, did you have a view of the white car?
I did.
Okay. And when you looked at the white car, did you see any activity in the vehicle?
I did not.
At that point that you arrived, did you see how many individuals were in the vehicle?
I did not.
Okay. Did you learn at any point whether there was anyone that had been removed from the vehicle?
I did, but I don't know at what point I learned that information.
Okay. Did anyone provide any other information about what was going on in that vehicle?
Not really.
Was there any information that anyone in that vehicle had a firearm?
No.
Okay. About did you have any information about the degree of injury that that person in the vehicle may or may not have?
No.
How many officers were present at that point?
Maybe approximately 10.
Did the group of you ultimately take action toward the white car?
We did.
And could you describe your actions?
We utilized a body bunker and formed up in a tactical line and approached the vehicle on the passenger side. And once we got to the passenger side, somebody was calling for more cover on the driver's side, and so that's when I moved over towards the driver's side.
And when you got to the driver's side, what did you see?
I had seen, what I know to be Mr. Wright, slumped over in the driver's seat.
What was his condition at that time, based on just your observation?
He was slumped over.
Okay. Would you characterize it as non-responsive?
Yeah, non-responsive, head kind of, I believe, to the right.
Okay. What did you do at that point?
At that point, I moved over to the driver's side door and passenger door and had my gun out as I was trying to look in the back seats. And then another officer finally got the driver's side door open.
Okay. And after the driver's side door opened, what did you do?
Officer Lazenberry from Brooklyn Park Police Department grabbed a hold of Mr. Wright's hands and began to remove him from the vehicle, and I assisted by grabbing a hold of Mr. Wright's shirt and jacket area.
And after you grabbed him, where did you take Mr. Wright?
Right out of the driver's seat and approximately 15 to 25 yards away from the vehicle on the what I'd consider the grass boulevard.
As you laid him on the grass, what did you do at that point?
Started assessing him for injuries.
Did you locate any injuries on Mr. Wright's body?
Yes, we did.
Could you describe the injury that you observed?
A single gunshot wound that appeared to have entered from the left side and exited on the right side.
Did you check his entire body for other injuries?
Yes, we did.
And did you find any?
No, we did not.
So the primary injury that you observed was the gunshot wound to the chest?
That's correct.
You call that a side-to-side from the left to the right?
Yes, sir.
Did you participate in any actions at that point of the life-saving nature?
Yes, I did. Started to remove his clothing. I checked for a pulse on his wrist and also his carotid artery, which is on the neck. And as we were checking him, someone behind me handed me a chest seal. So I put the chest seal onto the exit wound.
Can I pause just a second? Could you just describe what a chest seal is?
A chest seal is you put on and it helps keep like your lung capacity and keep everything in there, and it kind of burps it out so you don't get collapsed lungs.
Did you feel a pulse when you checked his pulse?
I did not.
Okay. After realizing that Mr. Wright did not have a pulse, did you take any other actions?
Yes, we were calling for someone to give us a defibrillator, and at some point someone handed me their AED that they're commonly referred to.
Okay, could you describe what an AED is?
It's for cardiac patients typically. You open it up, it has a couple of electro pads. You put one on the chest and one on the side, and you plug it in and turn it on, and it analyzes for heart rhythms and tells you if a shock is advised or to continue with CPR.
And what happened when you hooked up the pads to Mr. Wright?
It told us to continue with CPR or start CPR.
And is that typical readout that AED gives you in a situation like this?
Yes, depending on what the heart rhythm that it's detecting. If it detects a non-shockable rhythm, and then it advises you to start CPR.
If it did register a shockable rhythm, what would you use the defibrillator for?
To provide a shock.
So because the AED or defibrillator informed you, just recommended to continue CPR, is that what occurred at the scene?
That is correct.
Did you perform that CPR?
I assisted with it. I did not perform the chest compressions.
That was done by other officers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were there any other life-saving measures attempted by you?
Yes, I assisted with helping out with the oral airway. The oral airway is a plastic airway that's kind of at an angle, kind of like this, that you put in and you turn it around. It helps keep the tongue out of the back of the throat so that you can provide sufficient ventilation. And I assisted with keeping the head, neck, chin tilt so it opens up the airway more, and I held on to the ambu bag to form a seal around Mr. Wright's mouth and chin, and so he could get adequate air from the ambu bag.
During this time, were any paramedics on the scene?
There was a paramedic that arrived. I don't know at what point they walked into the equation.
Just in talking about your background, these decisions that had to get made to check pulse, start CPR, get the AED, get the chest seal on, these decisions which were all directed by law enforcement officers based on your training, correct?
That's correct.
And as to your observations, was everyone able to act in accordance with training?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but at some point you mentioned that paramedics did arrive?
They did.
And do you remember how many minutes into your efforts those paramedics arrived?
I don't. It wasn't very long. Less than 5, I would say.
Okay. What occurred when the paramedics arrived?
I believe they initially checked the pulse and advised us to continue with CPR. Another paramedic, I believe, they have a much larger machine that checks the rhythm of the heart and does other medical stuff, and they called it 12 lead, and they started putting on the 12 lead stickers all over the body to check for a rhythm.
These are just another whole set of leads that you would put on the body. Is that also basically another version of a defibrillator that if it advised a shock, they could have shocked, but if not, it just tells you to continue CPR?
Yes, and it also shows on the display what the heart rhythm is and other things on that display that I don't.
Sure, it's a more medical, it's something that the paramedics have, not you as an officer just has in the back trunk,
Yes,
right?
yes, sir.
Now, did CPR continue?
It did.
Was there any other additional intervention proposed at that time?
Putting on what's called a Lucas device.
Could you describe what a Lucas device is?
A Lucas device is a device that assists paramedics and other first responders with CPR. It's you have a plastic backboard piece that you slide underneath somebody, and then the top piece clicks into that, and almost a suction cup type thing comes down onto the chest, and I believe it's fueled by or used by like compressed air, and you push start, and it gives the correct depth and rate for CPR. It's used for that, and also because CPR is very strenuous on people to continue for a long period of time.
So it's a very large machine that could sort of replace officers' efforts to conduct CPR on a patient.
That's correct.
And did you ultimately complete installing the Lucas device on Mr. Wright?
No, I believe we only got the backboard piece underneath him.
And why was that?
Because I believe we were directed to stop by one of the medics on scene.
Do you recall why the paramedic directed you to stop?
I don't recall the exact what they said.
Yep. At the time that they directed you to stop, did you also understand that was significant of another conclusion made at the scene?
Yes.
And what was that?
That the party was deceased.
After the paramedic pronounced Mr. Wright dead, what did you do?
I assisted with getting a sheet from the paramedics so that we could cover up his body.
And after you covered Mr. Wright's body, what did you do at the crime scene?
I believe after that, I moved to the east side of the crime scene to help the deputies and others on scene move people back and extend the crime scene tape.
At that point, were you told any information about what actually happened?
No.
Did you know at that point whether Mr. Wright's death pertained to an officer-involved shooting?
I'm going to allow leading on just these preliminary points. Go ahead.
Can you repeat that, sir?
Did you know at any point whether Mr. Wright's death pertained to an officer-involved shooting?
I did not know for sure.
Were you informed whether there were any suspects outstanding at that point? Or
I was not.
Okay. Did you complete any other tasks related to this case?
Yes, after I was done on the east side of the crime scene, I went back and stood by Mr. Wright's vehicle and Mr. Wright's body, waiting for any further instructions, and I was approached by Sergeant Lorenz from the Brooklyn Center Police Department. He asked how long I could stay. I advised him as long as he needed me, and then he asked me if I could take Officer Salvosa back to the Brooklyn Center Police Department.
And do you know why that you were asked to bring Officer Salvosa back to the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
One, his car was within the crime scene, and two, it's pretty standard between departments that when you're involved in a critical incident, you have a buddy officer that takes you and stays with you until you're relieved.
When you are asked to be a buddy officer, or sometimes called an escort officer, what parameters do you have typically?
We don't talk about the case. You drive them to whatever location it is. In this case, it was Brooklyn Center Police Department, and we found an empty room by ourselves, which was the upstairs break room, and I sat there with him until I was relieved.
Yep. And did you talk about the case?
No, we did not. A little bit initially about when I got there, but other than that, we just watched TV and talked about other cases.
Yep. And were you eventually relieved?
Yes, I was.
Now, did you do anything else with regard to the investigation of this case?
No, I don't believe I did.
Did you collect any evidence?
No, I did not.
Did you interview any witnesses?
I did not.
Did you witness any of the events which led to Mr. Wright's death?
I did not.
Okay. Now, during your actions, were you wearing your body-worn camera?
I was.
Okay. And you know that it captured footage of the events that we've discussed this afternoon, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you've had an opportunity to review that footage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state offers Exhibit 45.
Any objection to Exhibit 45? There being no objection, Exhibit 45 will be admitted and you may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Miller, put that up. If you could pause just at the beginning. Just trying to get bearings, Officer Irish. I'm showing you on the screen an image. Would you agree the timestamp on that says 19:10 and 41 seconds? Do you think that's accurate?
Yes, I learned it's Zulu time.
It's Zulu time. So in Central Standard Time, would you agree that was 2:10 and 41 seconds?
I would.
All right. And could you describe what you see on the screen in front of you?
The officers that were on scene getting ready to devise a plan. The Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center squad car, and the white car was the car that Mr. Wright was in.
Okay, so right in the middle of the screen here, you see like the back quarter panel. That's the white vehicle.
Yes, sir.
And then there are a number of other police officers that you can see on the screen here,
Yes, sir.
right? Including yourself. You'd agree that at least you see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least 8 officers in view, on 7 on the camera, and then including yourself, it'd be 8 right here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. You can play that.
And we object on the grounds that this is entirely cumulative.
Would you like to do a sidebar, please?
They got pew pews on the screen. They have the video paused, so I can't show you the stupid pew pews on the screen, but you ain't missing much. They must be having a sidebar. Joe Dirt, read the description if you want an explanation. I've spent a year explaining that. You can go read it. Or you can kick rocks. Because I see you crying hard in the chat. I wasn't going to say nothing, but since you tagged my name.
Mr. Miller, you can Your Honor, you said sustained. You mean overruled, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. You can continue, Mr. Miller.
We're just gonna block that window. We're coming up. We're moving up.
You're another bunker.
Alright, I got another one.
Here, we got another bunker, Steve.
Watch out.
Are we in the back?
Double check, but nobody's in the back.
Pull that door. Where do you want? The other side? Handgun?
Handgun. Anybody in the back? Just here. Let's get up, med kit. Med bags, please. You got chest here. Alright. And chest wound here. We got scissors. We need scissors.
Chest.
Chest wound here.
Looks like
Rolling quick. I got nothing on the back.
nothing. Nope.
Nothing on the back. Okay. Oh, we got another one right there. No, no, that's in, that's out. You said in and out. I got a clear dressing.
And we're gonna gauze seal.
Clear dressing. Yeah, wipe that out. You got.
What's that?
So in, out. Hold on, I'm gonna take a breath. Do we have tape? Oh, here we go. So doing chest compressions?
Yeah.
Yep. Let's get an AED.
Where's that AED?
We're gonna check it. Yeah, let's do it. I wouldn't do CPR. Okay. Always do.
I think this is the first officer to have a vest on the stand.
Stand clear. Connect electrodes. Stand clear.
Is that the fibrillator or is that the judge talking?
I believe wounds here, wounds there.
No shock advised.
No shock advised.
Start CPR.
I paused the video at 2:13 and 35 seconds, correct, officer?
Yes, sir.
There's an individual walked up who placed his hand on Mr. Wright's neck, correct?
That's correct.
Could you identify who you believe that is?
I don't know who he is, but with his uniform walking up, it looks like a North paramedic.
Okay, and what is he doing right now with regard to Mr. Wright's?
Checking for a pulse on his neck.
And you'd agree this is your body on camera, so it's showing what these hands out here that you can see in the video, those are your hands, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there was a device that you were manipulating in the video just in the last minute or two of this video, correct?
That's correct.
And is that the AED that you previously testified about?
Definitely object to that. He already testified to all this. Now we're watching the film. Now he's narrating the film.
All right.
403.
Well, counsel,
Yeah, I'm just yes, Your Honor. I understand that there's not supposed to be speaking objections. It has been talked about a couple times.
all
so Thank you.
right. And, all right, but you know what my prior ruling was?
Yes.
All right.
You can continue, Mr. Miller.
Want to start pumping on him with those?
Was he responsive for you guys at all?
No.
We just pulled him out of the car like 3 minutes ago. He was in the back. He was like this the whole time?
Yeah.
767, make it 100%.
Yeah, I want you to do CPR for a sec. We'll get the monitor on him. I'm thinking we're probably going to call in your position. I don't feel anything. He was like this the whole time.
Whole time? Okay.
Anybody tell me if he's the only one that we have so far?
No, there's like 2 or 3 others, I think.
You know who I can talk to?
I have no idea, man. That's what I heard in the
These
radio.
don't fit in ours. But
It analyzed one to no shock
no
device.
shock device
Yep.
ones?
Yep.
Dustin, do you know those fit? Okay.
I get it. Actually, he's filling up on them. I got that earpiece in. All right. Is that?
Oh, that's starting to come out.
Yep. That's what we're thinking. Yep.
One out here,
Oh, that's.
in or out, like 2 of them.
Yeah, no, in and
Where?
in is on the left side, out's on the right.
Got a chest here on the
Gonna come
outside.
around you and pull these. Get ours on.
Okay, what?
Yep.
Okay, keep going. I'm gonna have
Yep.
another one.
Yep. Sorry, I'm kind of stepping on it. There we go. Just a double check. We're in charge mode. Let me get those on.
Let me know when you want to switch. Right? Yep.
Put these 4 stickers on them as well.
All right, we're doing compression.
Connect electrodes.
What I think is really interesting is the reason we're staring at the cop's face right now is because the body cam footage is most likely showing death.
Electrodes.
And I think they found out from the Kyle trial, they probably found out the hard way. Can't show that on YouTube.
Tell me when you're ready, Phil.
1 second. You got the forearm.
4 is on.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna stop
Stop
CPR for a
concussion.
second.
Check pulses, guys.
Check pulses.
You got nothing here?
Got nothing.
Nothing.
There's some electrical.
We're gonna get back on compressions. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, there's some electrical activity.
Okay, let's get the Lucas going then.
Look at you guys flirting with Nightbot. You guys love them bots, I find.
So he's PEA.
Is that where we at? All right. Get the back plate over here.
I believe. I think so. Okay. Because my partner's down
Are we
there.
gonna roll them?
Roll your way first.
I was at the station. I was just on my way back. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
All
Let's
right.
just roll them.
Roll 'em.
There you go.
You guys did not find a phone?
No pulse. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Here, grab that sheet.
Right there. Pull these for that. Lucas, back plate. There you go. This cover here.
Yeah, I felt for like 15 seconds. I didn't feel anything. Yes.
Still do. You and Nightbot are dating? You better be careful. I think she's dating a few. That's like Captain Seamus. Thoughtbot in the Discord. She gets around.
16 to 03. I'm gonna be stuck down here for a few minutes.
No, you guys just arrived. Okay, they arrived. So we won't wait. You have. We're waiting for.
So I'm gonna grab their run number then.
Okay.
I guess, right?
Yeah.
I'll just
And the video concluded. Officer Irish, going back to April 11th, is it true that most officers on the scene were wearing body-worn cameras?
Yes.
And prior to today, did you have an opportunity to review some still images from other officers' body-worn cameras, which fairly and accurately capture images of your actions that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state is going to show the jury 7 still images, exhibits 46 through 52.
Thank you. This would be cute. 403, Judge. We declare.
All right, just a moment. Only one word objections, please, sidebar.
You guys seen a squirrel in the tree during the body cam footage? Maybe we'll do a poll on the squirrel. Was he there for racist reasons? He was there to see them racist cops. He probably heard about them racist horses, and he was like, I don't know if there's going to be any Mounties here. I better keep an eye out. She looks like a Call of Duty character wearing that mask and that headset. Ranger man, you saw a bunny in the clouds? See, I'm just not trying hard enough. I'm sitting here reading comments and just doing regular shit. I'm missing all the good stuff. We're gonna call the squirrel to the stand. Might have to. He was a witness. Shink. Squirrel saw the whole thing. I trust his judgment. Miscellaneous hardware and chicken. The squirrel's a bigot. He is. Hardcore bigot squirrel. They're out there. Okay, them bigot squirrels, you gotta watch them. You gotta watch them. Here in Michigan, we got squirrels of all colors, but they're all bigots. You ever seen a red squirrel? We got those. You ever seen a black squirrel? We got those too. They gangbang. I could go on and on. I'll just stop. They should sell Tic Tacs with masks. Don't say that. They probably will start doing that stuff. I remember when I used to have to wear a mask and stuff, I'd be just killing these monsters. But then, like, you go to exhale after putting your mask on and just mace yourself under your safety glasses. Hardcore. Come back to the line crying and stuff. They're like, what'd you do for lunch? Tried not to die. Tried not to kill grandma. Parabellum. I wish I smoked for my lunch. I was replying to emails and stuff.
Okay, members of the jury, we're going to take our afternoon break a little bit early. So, 20 minutes.
Didn't you guys just get back? Jeez. Hey, I appreciate you being here, Catman T. Oh, Callahan, you don't believe the squirrels? They're all nuts. I don't know. Probably more trustworthy than people.
So I think the most efficient way to do this is to go in chamber so you can show me what you're proposing to show, okay?
Adam, you rescued and raised a squirrel? That's neat. It'd be neat to have a little squirrel. I raised a raccoon once. They're neat. Raccoons are awesome. You can't have them in this state. Actually, I don't know if there's any state you can. Maybe. There might be some states you can have a raccoon. Have a little coony friend. Not here in Michigan, though. He got all big and fat and waddled off one day and never came back. They eat cat food. They're funny as hell. Yeah, JJ Money, I think the judge needs a refill. She was like, oops, forgot to top her off. We're going to need a 20-minute break. Waiting for them pharmaceuticals to kick in. Back to reality. The chipmunk is not amused. Just tolerating our shit. Lance can't get over the judge doing a voiceover for the defibrillator. Swear to God, it sounds just like her. It's like we got Siri in the room or something. She's something else. Amy, squirrels make great pets. I wonder if we can have squirrel pets here in Michigan. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. I seen a hungry little starving baby squirrel out in the yard. I live in this like apartment complex, and so it's all fenced in between the buildings. It's out there digging in the snow, starving to death. I went and bought him some peanuts, and now we got like 50 million squirrels around here. I just take all the credit for it. I just assumed I rose the population single-handedly by myself, just out here doing good deeds, you know. Captain Seamus, she needs more Molly Ranchers. I think she's on something harder than some Molly Ranchers. I'm still trying to figure out that tea she was drinking. She probably had that boom tea. Pupils are all dilated and stuff. They're like, yes, Judge. She's like, huh? What? Snapping back to reality. Oh, gee, you had a trash panda for a pet? He was an asshole? Usually they're not assholes. They're funny little things. They think they're getting away with it. Hydrodynamic. Have I ever had Rocky Mountain oysters? Is that a real thing, or is that like a sexual thing? Is that like a drug? Should I have not said that out loud? I'm gonna have to Google it, but I'm a little bit nervous. If it's just regular oysters, then no. I don't eat seafood. I don't eat anything that's, well, I don't eat most things that swim. Catman T. I love squirrels and they love my tomatoes. Sometimes they save me a few. That's funny. I didn't know squirrels ate tomatoes. Mana. I ain't been forgetting to put beats on. I just, normally the court talks so quiet that I can't run beats through the trial. Because I'd like to, because some of the stuff they're talking about is just boring. Good Lord, you guys are just telling gruesome stories about squirrels now. How did it get so dark in here? Woodburger Farm says, I raised a flying squirrel until I forgot to leave the toilet seat down. Instead of a flying squirrel, you should have had a swimming one. That's rough. That's rough stuff. And then right afterwards, I had to run over a squirrel because it was half dead in the road. Like, good Lord. It's like Pet Cemetery all of a sudden. Turbo Goat, send her some infused tea, get her floating. I don't think she needs any help. She sounds like she's barely in the room. Captain Seamus, that's what I thought it was. I wasn't sure. No, never had no bull bollies. Never had it. Don't need it. That's all I got to say about that. Todd, the judge has a voice of a phone sex operator. That's what I said when I first heard it. I don't know how else to really explain it. I wonder if she does it on purpose. Like, could you imagine her yelling at you? You're just getting scolded. You're like, oh yeah, give me more. You'd be coming home late from work every day just to get screamed at like that. She's probably mean though, because she knows that being vocal doesn't do enough because of the way her voice is, so she's probably real handsy. She start yelling at you and you start smiling at her like an idiot, you know how us guys do, and then she just strike you hard as hell, wake you up, let you know what time it is. The Blue Oyster Cult is up in here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you guys are so well informed about bowl balls and stuff. Just almost could have went my whole life without knowing that. Dub Vance, your wife's making cookies? What kind of cookies? We love cookies over here. You guys are gonna turn that into some racist thing. You hear that? Jeff Mack likes cookies. He's a bigot. Let's get him canceled. Everybody's putting in their order of what cookies they want. What's up, Zombie Hunter? Indigo, your cousin told you about mountain oysters. You and your cousin have weird conversations. I'm just gonna call her right now. I don't even know if do I even got cousins? I don't know. I've never talked to any family member about bowl balls, though. I don't know. I might now. I mean, now that I'm well informed, I mean, I might have to go have some conversations. Hey, thank you so much, Catman T, for your donation and your support. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Captain Seamus, that is super interesting. Half of what you're saying I have to actually Google because I don't even know. Like, what is a steer? Like, we have farms here, but I don't know what a steer is. I'm like somewhere in the middle between knowing stuff and not knowing stuff. Hydrodynamic, your sister ran over a rabbit once and then she had to break his neck because you pussed out. These things happen. I had a cat, big old fat cat named Mo. Mo money, mo problems. And he was a hunter. Let him outside to use the bathroom because I ain't cleaning no litter box. And he'd always bring back rabbits and squirrels and chipmunks, and I would cry and cry. Oh, you bastard, you killed all these cute little animals. I don't like dead things. I don't like seeing things die. I don't know. I'm just weird like that. There was a person who had a goose, like a farm goose or whatever, and it had something wrong with it. Or maybe it was probably a duck. It had something wrong with it. It got attacked and was going to die. She's like, hey, I need you to come over with the pew pew and let him have it. He's sitting in the pond. He won't let any of us get near him. You're going to take him out in the pond. I sat there for a long time, hit him with the 22, and he, flailed around and stuff, and eventually kicked the bucket. Oh, God, I cried all day about that. I'm a damn goose killer and this, that, and the other. I don't know. It's my achy, breaky heart. I feel for you, Hydrodynamic. Out here just hurting little animals. Indigo, you're from the city and they tried to trick you into eating them. That is a terrible way to find out what those are. What's up, Susie? Thanks for being here. Animated adventure Oreos are racist. I think Oreos ended racism. Pretty sure that's how they came to be. It was like a treaty to end racism. I think that's how it went. If we say it loud enough and long enough, it'll be the truth. I mean, it works for CNN and stuff. We'll get away with that. We'll tell everybody racism ended when Oreos came out. There's no such thing as racism. And like I'm saying, if enough of us get the word out, people will believe it. That's the magic of being the loudest one in the room. Joe Smith, we have testicle festivals here. Yeah, my brain is processing that. I just don't know what to say back. Where are you? Are you in America? I've never heard of that. Natasha, I'm not sure if that's your name, and the sentence is wrote in a way that I'm kind of having a hard time understand what you're looking for. I think you're trying to find the Maxwell trial. You're not gonna be able to find it live. We'd be covering that if it was live. I think you can find live audio, but I don't know anyone that's successfully done it yet. Captain Seamus, a steer is a ballless bull. Like what do they call it? A eunuch? Is that what it is? It's a eunuch bull? Weird. I didn't know that was like a thing we did. I mean, obviously I knew that we neutered things, but I didn't realize it made them a whole nother creature. It's so weird that I did not know anything about that. What's up, Robert? Jeff, you did not miss much of anything. Bunch of dramatics. Really? I don't think we've learned anything new. I see all you guys with these taser comments. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna be using that on the Call of Duty. I used all the Kyle references and everything. People hate playing with me online. I spend more time talking than doing anything else. You're like, taser, and then you call in an airstrike. Terrible. Shouldn't even talk about that. Just a terrible person. Squirrel oysters. That's there you go. There you go. I hadn't thought that far along. A Canada knows. Stacy, your favorite is squirrel and noodles? I have never eaten a squirrel. I've never even seen squirrel meat. I'm sure there's people here near where I live that do it, but I've never seen it. Rubicon, you think the Hub has got the Maxwell trial going? They might. I get banned off YouTube. I might be streaming on there. Who knows? At least on there, you can say whatever you want. Pretty much whatever you want. I don't know how I'm going to get subscribers to follow me, though. Yeah, just follow me over to the Hub. You hear the intro music go off. Rubicon, my goodness. Takes quite a few squirrels to make a meal. Why? Because their pots and pans are pretty small. Awesome. You win. You win the internet today. What's up, 10 Days of Darkness? YouTube is snooping. What are we getting? Buffering? Oh, yeah. I am seeing this. What the heck is causing that? Good Lord, are we gonna buffer out now? I have no idea what's going on. Something just pulled the hell out of my internet. Deanna, you live in Southwest Washington State. Squirrels love strawberries. You can't grow them because of the squirrels. I think strawberries are pretty hard to grow. I've tried to grow them before, but it didn't work out. But I was also doing it hydroponically, and that's just a whole nother story.
Travis, just want to make a record that you're allowing exhibits 46, 49, and 50?
Yes, we went back in chambers and I reviewed the photographs. I found that a number of them were cumulative. And so we restricted the number of photographs taken that will be shown to the jury.
What's up, Bailey? Is the trial any good? I mean, it's all right, I guess.
Right, please be seated.
previously testified about how you approached Mr. Wright's vehicle, and you testified that you saw Mr. Wright's body slumped. If you saw an image of his position, would you recognize it?
Yes, I would.
At this time, please show Exhibit 46. In Your Honor, the state offers Exhibit 46. I think, has the court received it?
Well, is there any objection to 46? Okay. Number 46 will be admitted over defense objection.
At this time, the state also offers Exhibits 49 and 50.
Okay, and I'm going to allow those exhibits as well over defense objections.
Thank you, Your Honor. You can now publish Exhibit 46. Could you zoom in? Officer Irish, could you describe what you see here on Exhibit 46?
Mr. Wright's body slumped over in the driver's seat.
And is that the position you recall him being in as you approached?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as you can put that down, Mr. Miller, you've testified about the medical interventions that you and other officers administered to Mr. Wright. As you began that medical intervention, do you recall the number of officers that were surrounding Mr. Wright?
I don't.
Okay. Please put up Exhibit 49. I'm showing you Exhibit 49. Would you agree that this is an image of the lot of you who were attempting life-saving measures on Mr. Wright prior to the arrival of the paramedic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in fact, if you look way on the right side of that image, do you see someone?
It appears to be the paramedic walking towards us.
And then, Mr. Miller, if you could show Exhibit 50. And what do you see in Exhibit 50, sir?
The paramedic attempting to locate a pulse.
Okay. And are you the individual whose head is immediately seen above the paramedic's head right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was the position when you were administering the AED and other handling the breathing bag?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take that exhibit down. Now you mentioned I believe you mentioned that you left the scene at approximately 2:48 p.m.
Around there, yes.
Roundabout. And you completed no further work on the case after that in terms of scene investigation.
That's correct.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any pause?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Paul Eng on behalf of Kim Potter with Earl Gray and Amanda Montgomery, and as you know, we get to ask you questions too.
Yes, sir.
You have had a 19-year career with a lot of different assignments, correct?
Correct.
One of the assignments that you had was to work for the Hennepin County Drug Task Force, is that right?
That's correct.
And in so doing, you met Officer Potter's husband, Jeff, did you not?
I have, yes.
Okay. In fact, Jeff is right, the fellow in the suit, isn't that right? You know him.
Yes, I recognize him.
You have worked with him.
Sidebar, please.
They do more talking off the record than they do on the record. She's like, I don't know, I need more snare in my headphones.
allowing the answer to stand.
But in addition to being a member of the Drug Task Force, you're a patrol officer on various cities in the northern suburbs, correct?
For the city of Corcoran, yes.
And Dayton.
Yeah, I resigned from there about 5 years ago.
Well, you were, on this day, you were delivering someone to the Hennepin County Jail on a warrant, is that right?
That's correct.
What you had done is arrest somebody, right?
Yes, sir.
Was it a traffic stop by chance, if you remember?
I don't recall what this...
Asking what a warrant is.
Okay. Is there an objection?
Relevancy?
The objection is overruled. You had arrested someone on a warrant, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and a warrant is an order from the court authorizing you to make that arrest, right?
That's correct.
And when you have an arrest warrant for a body, you bring the body into jail, is that right?
On most warrants, correct.
Okay. So you were coming out of the Hennepin County Jail and you heard this dispatch, is that right?
That's correct.
For shots fired, right?
Yes, sir.
And you didn't know who fired the shot,
No, I did not.
but it really didn't make any difference to you as long as you heard something about a shot fired or shots fired, right?
That's correct.
I mean, so whether or not a police officer fires a shot or someone else fires a shot, you're going to put your lights on and go.
That's correct.
Okay. Without hesitation, right?
Yes, sir.
You knew where the scene was, of course, right?
Yes.
Okay. Could you hear Salvosa, Officer Salvosa, over the dispatch, or did you just have a dispatch saying shots were fired?
I believe it was a Brooklyn Center officer that said shots fired initially.
You can't tell us who that was.
I can't.
Okay. All right. But in any event, you got it took you about how long to get to the scene? 10 minutes? Would that be about right?
I would say less than 10 minutes.
Okay. And the first thing you saw were two cars which had collided. Isn't that right?
Yes, 2 crash cars.
And you've been around a lot of crashes in your career, right?
That's correct.
And you discerned, did you not, that the crash of these two vehicles occurred with a significant force?
Yes.
It was not just a fender bender.
No.
Okay. And the amount of force you know from your training is measured by the speed and the weight of the car involved. Is that correct? Those are the kind of the physics of it, right?
More or less, yes, sir.
I'm not telling you you're Einstein or anything, but the amount of damage depends on how heavy the car is and how fast it's going, right?
Yes, there was.
And you saw that this was one of the cars, whichever car had stopped caused this, was going at a significant speed in your experience, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when you arrived, you deferred to the judgment of the officer on the scene, that would be Officer Salvosa, as to what to do. Is that right?
No, I don't believe I ever conferred with him.
Well, was he, when you were at the scene and came on the scene, did he have his gun out and ordering the people out of the car, or the woman out of the car, or did you come after that, if you recall?
I came after that.
So you had come after the woman had been taken from the car or walked away from the car at about the same time that the bunker was used. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
Okay. And a bunker is a tactical device to protect police.
Yes.
From errant shots, gunshots, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's a protective shield that will rebuff a bullet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And at the time you were in the line with the bunker, the thought was, at least in your mind, is that this was still a very dangerous situation, right?
That's correct.
And one of the reasons why it was dangerous is that you knew that a car had fled the scene of some arrest. Isn't that right?
I knew it fled the scene from something. I just knew there were shots fired.
Well, could you see the lights about a block away, further to the west? Do you remember that at all, officer? I'm not saying you can or not.
No, I didn't focus my attention that way.
Okay. But the windows of the car were tinted.
That's correct.
It was difficult to see in.
Yes, sir.
That made it more dangerous for you.
Yes, sir.
One of the most dangerous things you can do is open a car and not know what's inside.
That's correct.
So you moved in with the with the bunker and finally opened the door, is that right?
Moved in with the bunker and then moved around to the driver's side of the car.
And whether you opened the door or someone else opened the door opened.
Yes.
And Mr. Wright was taken out, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you know how long it was after Mr. Wright, had gotten to that point that you had taken him out of the car? Did you know that at the time? How many minutes had elapsed?
I did not.
So your job after that was to engage in life-saving efforts, is that right?
That's correct.
Non-judgmental life-saving efforts to figure out what happened, right?
That's correct.
And the protocols don't allow you to think too hard. You just got to act.
Yes, and that comes from experience.
And apply the necessary equipment as you have it, right?
That's correct.
And there was one part of your testimony that I was a little confused about. And you indicated there was some kind of signal coming from the heart that told you to continue, or one of your officers to continue to do the CPR. Am I right about that? Or did I miss you on that? Help me with that.
From the AED, it said, no shock advised, continue CPR.
Okay. And that's what they did.
That's correct.
Okay. And it did not advise you to stop all efforts, right?
It did not.
And so you followed that direction, right?
That's correct.
And you did everything that you possibly could
That's correct.
to save his life,
Yes, sir.
which is your charge, right?
I'm sorry, what was
Which
that?
is your charge.
Yes.
I had a couple more questions. When you arrive at a scene, someone tries to be in charge, right? Someone is in charge at some point, right?
At some point, yes.
And it is kind of rank-based. For example, if you have a sergeant on the scene, the sergeant would be more in charge than the patrol officer. And I say that in no disrespect, but that's just the ranking of how this works. Am I right?
In most cases, yes.
Okay. So if you had a scene with 2 patrol officers and 1 sergeant, it would be fair for you to assume that the sergeant would eventually take control of the scene.
Yes, eventually.
That's the protocol too.
Generally, yes.
Okay. And make the calls to dispatch, make the necessary alerts on what's going on.
Yeah, some of the communications.
But it would go to the higher officer.
The communications?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I can talk on my radio as I see fit.
But if the officer, I mean, if there are 2 officers on the scene and the third is a sergeant, the sergeant certainly has discretion to take control and make the dispatches. Correct?
Absolutely.
No further questions.
On cross-examination, Mr. Eng asked you whether, when you approached, the nature of the approach, was that a dangerous situation? Do you remember when he asked you that question?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that the nature of their approach is sometimes based on what you don't know?
Yes.
Not that you knew there was danger, but that you didn't have information about what was afoot.
The objection is sustained.
Did you have information at the scene which allowed you to independently conclude that the scene was dangerous?
Yes, that there were shots fired.
That there was a shot fired?
Yes.
What about the individuals in the vehicle?
I didn't know anything about the individuals in the vehicle.
Mr. Eng asked you about sort of the advisories that the AED machine gives you. Could you list the advisories that the AED machine may give you when you hook it up and turn it on with an individual?
All AEDs are set up so that a lay person that's never used them can plug in the pads and start CPR. It tells you to place pads on patient. It tells you to keep your hands off patient while the machine's analyzing. It tells you that no shock is advised, continue CPR. It will also tell you stand clear from the patient. And you stand clear from the patient, make sure everyone's clear, and it'll tell you to deliver a shock. Those are most of the commands that I believe that an AED will give you.
Okay. So when the AED advised you to continue CPR, it was telling you that there wasn't a chargeable rhythm?
That there wasn't a shockable rhythm.
Shockable rhythm. And it isn't, let me clarify, is there any report that the AED would give you that it ain't even worth CPR?
The objection is sustained.
So again, you testified that it's stand clear or no shockable rhythm, continue CPR.
Yes.
No further questions.
Anything else?
What the machine does is help you make decisions and tells you what to do, which is helpful, right?
Yeah, but if I didn't have the machine, I would still make the decision to do CPR if I didn't have a pulse.
But it was helpful to have it, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the reason you use it.
That's correct.
Anything further? Okay. Thank you. You may sit down. Okay, the state may call its next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the state calls Officer Jeff Summers.
Hello, officer. Will you please come forward? And there is a chair next to me. Will you please stand next to the chair? And raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this cause? I do. Please have a seat. And officer, please remove your mask. State your full name and spell it.
Oh, sorry.
State your full name and spell it.
Oh, Jeffrey Allen Summers, Jeffrey. Allen, Allen, Summers, Sommers.
Couple of reminders. The court reporter is taking down everything that's being said. Answer with a yes or a no. Don't say uh-huh or uh-uh. Okay? If you don't understand a question, let the lawyer know. If an objection is made, stop talking immediately and don't answer the question unless I tell you to. And only one person can talk at a time. So wait until the question's finished before you start answering. Right? Counsel?
Could you state your occupation for the record?
I'm a police officer with Brooklyn Center Police. Okay, sorry. Police officer with the City of Brooklyn Center.
Now, you began your career as a police officer in 2008, correct?
Correct.
And that was with the Anoka City Police Department?
Yes.
And then in 2010, you continued your law enforcement career with the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
Correct.
And have you been with Brooklyn Center ever since?
Yes.
And you're a licensed peace officer?
Yes.
And you take continuing education courses to maintain that license?
Yes.
I also want to note your military service. Could you tell the jury about your time as a Marine?
Yes. I did 4 years initial, then I joined the reserves and just retired back in March of this year. So I did 29 years.
Thank you for your service. Do you have a specific assignment within the Brooklyn Center Police Department?
Yes, I'm assigned to the patrol division.
Okay. And when you work patrol, are you equipped with body-worn camera?
I am.
And as a patrol officer, am I correct that you respond to 911 calls? You also do some directed patrol?
Yes, that's correct.
And as a patrol officer and as a Marine, am I correct that you have substantial emergency medical training?
Yes, I do.
And are you a certified first responder?
Yes.
And have you utilized your first responder training as a police officer?
Yes, I have.
During your career prior to April 11th of 2021, did you work with a fellow officer named Kim Potter?
Yes.
Describe how you know her.
We were assigned to the same shift for quite some time.
5 years?
At least 5, yes.
And have you interacted with Officer Potter outside of work?
Just on one occasion.
And if you saw her in person, would you recognize her?
Yes.
Is she in the courtroom?
The stipulation will be accepted.
Are you familiar with Sergeant Michael Johnson?
I am.
And how long have you known Sergeant Johnson?
Since I started at the Brooklyn Center Police Department.
Am I correct? He's been your patrol sergeant for 4 or 5 years as well?
Yes.
I want to discuss the events of April 11th, 2021 today. Do you recall that day?
I do.
And were you on duty that day?
I was.
What was your shift?
Started at 6 a.m. and was supposed to go to 6 p.m.
Okay. At 2 p.m., do you recall where you were?
I do.
Where were you?
I was in the report writing room at the police department.
Did you receive any communication from any fellow officers at that time that attracted your attention?
I initially heard a traffic stop called out by Officer Lucky, at which point he immediately asked for a second car.
Okay. Did you respond at that time, just to that information?
I didn't at that point because some other officers who were closer answered up.
Okay. Did you receive additional communication?
I did.
And what was that communication?
There was a shots fired.
Okay. Did you respond to a shots fired call?
I did.
Okay. And how did you respond?
Well, I ran to my squad car and activated my lights and sirens and went immediately there.
And as you were driving to the scene, did you get any updates as to what was going on?
I did.
And what were those updates?
The radio transmission came across that there was a vehicle had crashed and that Officer Salvosa stated that he was out of his car and had one at gunpoint.
As you were driving to the scene, what role did you anticipate playing at the scene?
At that point, I didn't know because all I know that there were shots fired and that there was a crash, so there's a lot of unknowns at that time.
And did you arrive in that area where Officer Salvosa was?
I did.
And would you agree that was the intersection of 63rd and Catherine?
Yes, it was.
How long did it take you to get there?
Probably 3 to 4 minutes, I'm guessing. I can't recall exactly.
As you arrived, was your body-worn camera activated?
It was.
And did it capture footage of your actions that day?
Yes.
Okay. Well, at this time, Your Honor, the state is going to offer Exhibit 54, Officer Summers' body-worn camera, which captures his actions upon arrival.
Is there any objection to Exhibit 54?
Addresses the removal of Mr. Wright's body.
All right. The objection is overruled. You may show the video.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And 54 will be admitted.
And Officer Summers, in lieu of asking you cool questions about your activities at that time, we're going to play the video. If I need to pause at some point to help the jury understand the video, I may do so. At this time, we'll play about a 14-minute body-worn camera excerpt. You can hit it, Mr. Miller, Exhibit 54.
Your incident has been
Yeah. What's that? We got a bunker? Do we have a bunker? No.
We'll wait for a bunker. Get out of the car! Get out of the car so we can take care of it! Get out of the car! Yes, you!
Get out of the car so we can help him.
He doesn't want to leave him.
Get out of the car. Let's grab a bunker if you got one. You got a bunker?
Call her out over here, would you?
Call her.
Okay.
I got it.
Ma'am, put your hands up.
Yeah, he's back.
Just two more in it.
There's one in the back.
I wish I could show you guys this. This guy is kind of mishandling this pew pew. He's got his hand like this while he's holding it, and as he interacts with the other officer, he's pointing it directly at the other officer. I would not feel safe around this guy with a pew pew, which is weird because he has a lot of experience from all the military background and stuff, but
It's hard to tell, huh?
I would not feel safe.
Which car? Oh, that. Turn your radio off, damn. Can't hear it.
Got one out of the car, still got two in there. And you want to look in the back seat too.
I'll be arriving.
Stand back.
Aspirin, if you have a bunker. Okay. Well, we see one on the front passenger seat. You guys want to come up from behind? You think so? All right, bring it around then. We can do it. We can bring it around.
Jesus, I think it's fine.
You guys been seeing the guy in the back moving around?
No.
We just know it's a backseat passenger.
And I can't tell if that's a person or not. The female got out and I don't know what she said. So. Hey Al, is there another person in the back or no?
No, no.
It's just the driver right now that we.
Yeah, that's all I can see.
Okay. She didn't say there was anyone else?
She doesn't say there's anyone else. I couldn't really see because she was moving around so much.
All right.
You guys all good now?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I mean, I know these officers didn't know it at the time, but they had a lot of cops there with pew pews pointed at a dead guy and his drugged out girlfriend in a car that had been smashed up. Like, lots of resources used for this scene here.
I don't see anybody moving back there.
No.
You just fan out.
Late status expired. One. State records in.
Here, I got him.
Thanks for stopping in, Sam.
Yeah, let's get up, med kit.
Hey Al, grab a bag.
Med bag, I'll grab the bag.
pretty good breathing or no?
I'm gonna show you where he's hit.
You got some here. All right. Scissors, everybody got scissors?
I think there's more than 12 cops there, and they were showing the camera footage. I wonder if they're going to interview all of them.
Got a bandage on there? Oh. There you go. What's that?
No one else came.
We've played the video a number of minutes. Let's take a breath for a second. Officer Summers, would you agree that, let me ask again, could you describe the first 6 minutes of the video we've just seen? Do those describe your actions at the scene that day?
Yes. So when we got there, while I was en route, like I said, that we got word that the vehicle had crashed. So as I got there, I saw Officer Selvos, the squad car, and he was outside of his vehicle with his gun drawn, and I parked directly to the side and behind him, and then made my way up to his car. And at that point, like I said, there was a lot of unknowns. All we knew that was shots were fired. We don't know by who. We didn't know who had firearms at that point, or anybody had been hit at that point either. So that's why it took us a while to get up there and clear the car, because they wanted to get a bunker there. So we had to assume that there may have been a firearm in the car. That's why there was those precautions were taken.
Right. The video also showed pardon me, do you know the identity of the individual who was pulled from the car eventually?
Eventually, yes.
And was that person identified as Dante Wright?
Yes.
Okay. And the portion of the video we just saw was Mr. Wright being taken out of that vehicle and placed on the ground?
Yes.
And you participated in the life-saving measures at that point, correct?
I did.
Okay. And right as you, I paused this video at 2:12 and 7 seconds, it appeared that you were digging into a bag. Could you describe what you were looking for in that bag, and then we'll hit play again?
Yes, that's the medical bag. It's got various first aid equipment. It's got an oxygen tank. I was looking for the bag valve mask, it's called. It's what you use to help the party breathe.
Okay.
And then I was also looking for an airway too.
Okay. And an airway just makes sure that pathway is...
It opens up so you can get air into the lungs.
Thank you. You can hit play again, Mr.
I got a clear dressing.
513. Looks clear, there's one north radio. I'm at level 63.
Clear dressing?
He doesn't have an X.
Yes, please. So it out. Hold on, real quick, John.
Yeah, I did.
Fuck. We don't have any. Is North cleared to come in yet? Oh.
Where's that AD?
Here's it. You guys want an airway? I'll get the air going. All with the...
We need to move. Yeah, north. Is this the only one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Just want to back out and get him on the road. No shock advice.
Was he responsive to you guys?
No.
We just pulled him out of the car like 3 minutes ago. He was in the back. He was like this the whole time. Yeah. Yeah, why don't you keep me here for a sec? We'll get the monitor on him.
Sidebar.
Dang, called a sidebar mid-video. Golf and guns. Regular police officers cannot shoot a fleeing criminal. Only federal officers can. DJ sidebar. Look at her out here getting it. She's like an EDM DJ. Scum, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. They had 1 million officers on the scene. We're going to watch all their body cams and hear all their perspectives of the same thing. I don't know. I think it's just due process. I think it's just something they're supposed to do. We'll see how this all ends.
Objection is sustained. This is very cumulative. I'll allow you to finish up with a testimony concerning what this witness did, but we don't need to show any more video.
Officer Summers, we stopped that video as the paramedics arrived. Could you describe what occurred after that moment?
Well, I got the oxygen hooked up, started administering the breaths, and they began chest compressions. Oh, I said that I started administering the oxygen, and then chest compressions had begun.
Ultimately, as those efforts continued, did the paramedics assess whether there was any chargeable pulse?
They did.
And ultimately, did the paramedics pronounce Mr. Wright dead?
Yes.
After the paramedics pronounced Mr. Wright dead, what did they do?
The paramedics cleared the scene, I believe.
Pardon me, what did you do?
Oh, what did I do? At that point, I grabbed the oxygen bag, loaded it back into the back of the vehicle that it came from, and at that point, I believe Officer Salvos and I were tasked to stay with the mother and father who arrived on scene.
Okay. Prior to speaking to the mother and father of Mr. Wright, were you told any information about what happened that led to his death?
No.
So, when you spoke to, at some point, someone came to the scene. You identified them as Mr. Wright's parents? Is that
Correct.
And you and Officer Salvosa spoke to them?
Salvosa, he did the speaking.
Okay. And am I correct that at some point, Officer Salvosa actually left the presence of the parents?
Yes.
Did you remain with them?
I did.
How long did you remain with them?
It was somewhere around an hour, I believe.
And what were you doing when you were next to them?
I was just tasked with trying to keep them out of the scene there, crossing the tape.
After you concluded speaking to Mr. Wright's parents, what did you do at the scene?
I was told to go down to the far western end
And what did you do when you got there?
Initially, I looked for a shell casing.
Did you find a shell casing?
I did not.
What did you do after you gave up looking for a shell casing?
At that point, I was put in charge of keeping people from coming in that way from the west.
Okay. Essentially, you did scene security.
Scene security, yes.
From not the end of 63rd where where Mr. Wright's parents were, but the other.
Correct.
Right. And how long did you provide scene security?
That was for a number of hours, actually. I don't recall how many, but it was quite a while.
Do you recall whether any other agencies came to that location while you were conducting scene security?
There was several.
What other agencies came?
I believe it was Crystal and Brooklyn Park.
I'm sorry. Did the BCA come?
They did eventually, yes.
Did the Hennepin County Medical Examiner come?
Yes.
Did you have any direct interaction with anyone from the BCA?
Just limited words. I just told them that I had looked for a shell casing and couldn't find one.
Okay. Do you know who from the Brooklyn Center Police Department had interaction with members of the BCA?
Specifically, no.
Now, we've seen some of your body-worn camera video here in court today, and you've talked a little bit about what you did at the scene. In addition to those tasks and assisting with security, did you do anything else regarding this case?
At the scene there?
Yeah.
Or, yes, initially part of the, it's called the West Metro Mobile Field Force. So I had to go leave the scene, get my gear, and then return to the scene.
Continuing to provide security.
Correct.
Yep. How about with regard to collection of any evidence?
No, I didn't collect any evidence.
Interview any witnesses?
No.
Write any reports?
No.
Speak to anyone else about the incident?
No.
Okay, and you did not witness any of the events which caused Mr. Wright's death?
I did not.
Okay. No further questions.
Do you have cross? Yes.
Your Honor, if you have no questions of this witness, would you like to be heard in earphones?
Sure.
Do you have any questions on this?
Okay. You may step down.
Thank you.
I'm sitting here watching the YouTube dashboard freak out for no reason. It literally is giving me warnings that don't make sense. It's like your bit rate is this high, but we recommend it has to be at least this number, which is half the size. Like, it literally doesn't make any sense. They're just being mad, being real mad. I must have said something. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if YouTube is like doing updates or what's going on. They're just like, what the status it's telling me just doesn't make sense. It's like your bit rate is 3,500, but we recommend it to be like 2,500. You have to be up to 2,500 at least. Like, yeah, but the number you're saying I'm at is higher. What are you, like, math? Figure it out, algorithm. Goodness. It's trash panda. It'll be nice when we have enough viewers on other platforms and we don't have to deal with YouTube's crap anymore, or they just implode completely. I like how everybody thinks the judge is real sexy, and then she pulls her mask off, and then you see 43 comments of like, ew, never mind. That's probably the most entertaining part of the trial.
Okay, the objection is granted in part and denied in part. The state may call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Mike Morlock.
Okay, please come forward. And will you please stand behind the chair, the witness chair? And raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this lawsuit?
I think this guy's the medic on the scene.
Witness chair. And remove your mask. And state your full name for the record.
Michael Henry Morlock.
And will you please spell it?
Spell it? My last name Morlock is M-O-R-E-L-O-C-K. The first name is Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L. The middle name is Henry, H-E-N-R-Y.
All right, the rules to testify are that you have to answer with a yes or a no instead of shaking your head. Because the court reporter is taking things down, don't say uh-huh and uh-uh. If you don't understand a question, ask for clarification. If an objection is made, stop talking. Don't answer the question unless I tell you to. All right? And only one person can talk at a time, so wait until the question's finished before you answer.
Understood.
Okay. Counsel?
Did you have him speak into the mic, please?
Oh,
I
yes.
was going to ask that. Do I need to be closer?
Yes.
Is that better?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Morlock.
Afternoon.
Could you tell the jury where you work, please?
I work for North Memorial Ambulance in our Metro Division, which is covering northern Hennepin County.
What is your job title?
My job title is Ambulance Operations Supervisor.
And how long have you been in the position as a supervisor?
About 3.5 years.
And did you have another role before that?
I was a paramedic with North Memorial as just a regular street paramedic for 911 calls, a field training officer, and for a period of time of maybe about 2 years before I was a supervisor, I worked as a flight paramedic on a helicopter.
And are you licensed and certified as a paramedic?
Yes.
Could you describe your general this year? Were you on duty as a supervisor with North Memorial EMS on that date?
Yes.
And did you respond to a call?
Yes.
And what was the nature of the call?
We received the call as a shooting, so it initially got called as a single shooting, and then briefly after that we were updated that there were 3 people shot.
So the information that you got from your dispatch was that 3 people were shot?
Correct.
Is the information you get from dispatch always accurate, or is it the best information at the time?
It is not always accurate, no.
But the information you were aware of was that there may be multiple shooting victims at the scene you were going to. Is that right?
Correct.
I object that he repeats his testimony. He's done it twice now.
All right, counsel, if you could just refrain from doing that.
Certainly, Your Honor.
All right.
Where did you respond on April 11th?
I don't remember the cross street. It was somewhere on 63rd Avenue in Brooklyn Center.
And what did you see when you arrived? Where was this a particular location you were dispatched to?
Yes, we were given a cross street. It was 63rd and some avenue on that street. So I was approaching from the west, so I was facing east on 63rd. And when I approached, I saw a number of vehicles there, a number of police in the area. And there was what appeared to be a line of police approaching a vehicle with rifles drawn and pointed towards the vehicle.
And what did you do at that point?
So we normally get called to the area on calls like this when we don't know if there's danger, and we wait for the police to clear us in. Since we were already heading to the area, I stopped at that point and waited for some sort of signal that we could approach safely.
When you say we, were you by yourself or were you with others?
So I had somebody in the vehicle with me that I brought from the garage, knowing that if there were 3 people shot, that we would need as many resources as possible. Shortly, like not far behind me, there was at least 1 ambulance.
And you were waiting for the all clear. Did you eventually get an all clear?
We got a signal, I believe, from a police officer down near the scene that made some sort of signal to come forward. And then shortly after that, as I was walking up, we got radioed in that we were code 4, which is the signal that the scene is safe.
When you say code 4, is that the meaning of that code?
Correct.
So did you approach where you had been signaled to by the officers?
I did, yeah.
And what did you see when you arrived there?
So as I approached, I saw a young woman being escorted out of the car towards a squad car. Shortly after that, I was made aware of a number of police officers around a body on the grass, and they were doing compressions, so CPR. At that point, that's where I drew my attention, and I headed in that direction.
To the individual who was receiving CPR, is that right?
Correct.
And what did you do once you approached that individual?
So I wanted to confirm that the CPR was necessary, so trying to feel for a pulse and determine whether or not they needed to continue compressions, and trying to get as much information as I could to hand off the patient to the crew that followed shortly after me.
And did you then check for a pulse?
I did.
And how did you do that?
I checked on the right side of his neck, the right carotid, for trying the left side as well for 5 to 10 seconds.
Were you able to detect pulse? Pulse?
I was not.